Good morning, Charlotte. Her mother-in-law's voice chimed over the phone, laced with its usual mix of command and exasperation. We've got a full house at the bed and breakfast today, so I won't be able to do any of the housework. I need you to take care of all the cooking, cleaning, and of the laundry. It's been piling up for 3 days now. And while you're at it, I need you to pick up some things from the store. Morning, Mom, Charlotte replied evenly. I hate to disappoint you, but I'm at work right now. I can't drop everything on such short notice. Her mother-in-law sighed audibly, the kind that screamed frustration. Charlotte, this isn't the first time we've had this conversation. Do I need to remind you of your responsibilities? As the wife of my oldest son, you are expected to contribute to the family business. This is the most exclusive bed and breakfast in the area, and I won't have you prioritizing your job. Charlotte's lips tightened. I'm not sure why you're putting job in quotation marks. My career is just as real as anyone else's, and with all due respect, this is your business, not mine. Her mother-in-law's voice sharpened. Don't dodge the issue. Let me know when you're leaving the office. I'll send you the shopping list. Mom, Charlotte began, keeping her tone calm but firm. I understand running a business like yours is demanding, but it's your job, not mine. I have my own career to manage, and I'd appreciate your understanding. Understanding. Her mother-in-law snapped. What I need is cooperation. Get out of that silly little office and come home. You have responsibilities here. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't, Charlotte countered. I'm out of town on business for the next 3 days. Out of town? Her mother-in-law exclaimed, her voice climbing an octave. How shameless can you be? You're my son's wife. Your only job should be helping me run this bed and breakfast. How else are you going to take it over one day? Charlotte froze. Take it over? What are you talking about? Exactly what I said, her mother-in-law replied, her tone turning icy. When my husband retires, the business will pass to your husband, and you'll inherit the management role from me. This was always the plan. This is the first I'm hearing of it, Charlotte said, disbelief lacing her words. And besides, your husband mentioned he already had someone in mind for the next manager. Yes, you. No, I'm pretty sure that's not the case. Her mother-in-law's voice dropped to a deadly calm. I'd rather not entrust the operations of my beautiful bed and breakfast to someone like you, someone who grew up in poverty. But for some unfathomable reason, my son chose you, so I'll have to make do. Once the travel season ends, I'll put you through hands-on training. Make whatever arrangements you need. Mom, you're being ridiculous, Charlotte said, her patience wearing thin. I have a career, and I'm not giving it up. Then quit. No way. I've worked too hard to get where I am. You're reneging on our agreement. What agreement? We never discussed this. It wasn't a discussion, it was an order. Charlotte sighed deeply. I don't have time for this right now. I have work to do. We'll talk later. Don't you dare hang up. Charlotte ended the call and returned to her work. Later that evening, her mother-in-law called again, her tone colder than ever. Charlotte, explain yourself. A large group just arrived at the bed and breakfast, and you're with them. Oh, that, Charlotte said with a smile in her voice. That's my company. We're on a team retreat. Your company? Yes. We needed a place big enough to accommodate us, and your rates were perfect. Thanks for hosting us. Her mother-in-law sputtered. I don't believe this. You're shameless. And you've just proven why I've decided to give the manager position to Miriam, my other son's wife. Charlotte raised an eyebrow. Miriam, she agreed to take over. Charlotte stepped into the lobby, her calm demeanor in stark contrast to the storm brewing behind her mother-in-law's eyes. So I gave them a month, her mother-in-law began, a sharp edge to her tone. After that, Miriam will start the training program I was preparing for you. Charlotte raised an eyebrow. She really agreed to that. I don't mean to sound doubtful, but from what I know of Miriam, becoming the next property manager doesn't exactly seem like her thing. Her mother-in-law scoffed, her voice dripping with derision. Oh, Charlotte, how pathetic. After all your protesting, now you're coming to me, begging to be taken back. Charlotte folded her arms, her expression unflinching. I'm not crying, and I'm certainly not begging, but I do find a sudden change in plans interesting. Did you really think, her mother-in-law sneered, that someone as unsophisticated as you, with your troubled upbringing, could ever manage a property as luxurious as this, bringing your little group here for an employee vacation? You were just trying to impress me, weren't you? Hoping I'd see you as competent. Charlotte frowned. That's not true at all. It was just a vacation. Well, I've had enough. Her mother-in-law snapped. You're no longer welcome here. Get out. Charlotte blinked, caught off guard. You're kicking me out. I'm here as a paying customer. My employees and I booked this stay in full. The others are welcome to stay, her mother-in-law said coolly. But you? No, I've tried to be gracious to you, despite your background. And this is how you repay me. You're desperate now, trying to crawl back into my good graces. It's disgusting. Charlotte's voice hardened. This is just a vacation, nothing more. Her mother-in-law waved a dismissive hand. Pack your things and leave. Go relax somewhere more suitable. A dive bar, perhaps. You don't belong in a place like this. Charlotte exhaled sharply, her patience finally snapping. Fine. If that's how you feel, then I guess you don't want me as a customer or a consultant. Her mother-in-law froze. What did you say? You heard me, Charlotte said. Your husband asked me to take on a consulting role to help with the bed and breakfast restructuring. But since I'm apparently not welcome here, I'll have to let him know I'm pulling my funding and withdrawing my services. Wait a moment, her mother-in-law stammered, her tone shifting from authoritative to panicked. What do you mean, pulling your funding? And what consultancy? Goodbye, Mom, Charlotte said, turning to leave. Charlotte, wait, the older woman's voice cracked. I had no idea the bed and breakfast was in such a precarious position. Charlotte stopped but didn't turn around. So I take it you finally talked to your husband? Yes, her mother-in-law admitted, the fight draining from her voice. Why didn't you tell me you're the CEO of the consulting firm founded by your grandfather? And about Miriam, she didn't agree to work with me. She quit her job to start her own company. Charlotte turned back, her expression unreadable. I did tell you what I did for a living. You must have forgotten. And yes, Miriam has her own plans, ones that don't involve managing your bed and breakfast. Her mother-in-law's shoulders sagged. Your husband told me the restructuring funds were coming from your family and Miriam's, and that your firm would oversee the new sales strategy. Charlotte gave a small nod. Correct. That's why my employees and I were here, to assess the property and develop a plan. But since you threw me out before I could even settle in, neither goal was accomplished. The older woman's face crumpled. Charlotte, listen, can't we just put this behind us? Forget this little misunderstanding. Please continue with the funding and consulting as planned. Charlotte studied her mother-in-law for a long moment. That's not my decision to make. It's up to your husband. Has he told you anything? Yes, she said hesitantly. He said if you were willing to forgive my behavior, he would proceed with the plan. Charlotte nodded slowly. I see. Then you know where we stand. This is a business matter, and I'll do what's best for my company. Charlotte faced her mother-in-law, whose composure was unraveling rapidly. So I can't give you a firm answer right now, Charlotte said, her tone measured. I'll need to meet with your husband in a professional context to discuss this further. My decision will depend on the outcome of that discussion. Her mother-in-law's voice trembled. We'll agree to your terms, anything you want. Just please, Charlotte, you have to help us. You have to save my beautiful bed and breakfast. A sharp voice interrupted them. Charlotte, what's going on here? Why am I being forced out of my position as property manager? I won't stand for this. Charlotte turned to see the owner herself, red-faced and indignant. Complaining to me won't change anything, Charlotte replied evenly. But you made my resignation a condition of your agreement to provide funding and consulting services. The woman snapped. That means this is your doing. You're responsible. Actually, Charlotte said, holding her ground, it was your husband who first brought up your resignation, not me. What? He told me you've been exceeding your authority, ignoring the official management policies, and treating the establishment like it's your personal playground. And more to the point, you've been discriminating against guests, giving special treatment to wealthier visitors, and alienating regular customers in the process. It's no wonder the business has been sliding toward bankruptcy. That's absurd. I would never. It's all in the customer reviews, Charlotte cut her off. They've been piling up on travel websites, with guests calling out your treatment of them as the main reason they'll never return. Her mother-in-law's face drained of color, but she pressed on. You need to tell me this. This was all my fault. Charlotte folded her arms. If you look at the numbers, yes. Any strategy for saving this business had to include addressing the root of the problem. You. Without that, nothing would work. I refuse to accept this, she declared, her voice shaking. I won't step aside. Who could possibly run this place better than me? Charlotte raised an eyebrow. Your husband has been discussing a replacement for quite some time. Lily, your niece, is the perfect candidate. The woman scoffed. Lily, she's strong-headed and won't listen to a word I say. Lily majored in hospitality management, apprenticed at a major hotel chain for 2 years, and has worked here for the past 5 years, Charlotte explained. She's taken on more and more responsibilities each year, to the point where she's essentially been doing as much work as you for the last 2 years. In my professional opinion, she's more than qualified to take over. Her mother-in-law stared at her, stunned. No, never. If Lily takes over, my husband said I'd be reduced to working as a maid. I couldn't bear the humiliation. Charlotte's tone softened slightly but remained firm. What's more humiliating, working as a maid or continuing to drive this business into the ground because you refuse to change? The choice is yours, but understand this. Your husband, as the owner, has the final say. Her mother-in-law's shoulders slumped. But this isn't fair. I didn't do anything wrong. Then take it up with him, Charlotte said. As a consultant, I'm here to provide professional advice, not make decisions. And if I may offer personal advice, I'd suggest swallowing your pride. Your husband has brought up the possibility of divorce, and it's not too late to save your marriage and your dignity. The maid position is still on the table. Tears filled the older woman's eyes, but she shook her head. No, I won't. Charlotte glanced at her watch. I have work to do, if you'll excuse me. She turned and left, leaving her mother-in-law standing alone. In the days that followed, her mother-in-law refused to compromise. True to his word, her husband finalized the divorce and offered her the maid position one last time. She declined and returned to her hometown, moving in with relatives. She searched for work in the hospitality industry, touting her experience running a bed and breakfast. But when interviewers questioned why she left her previous role, her vague answers raised suspicion. Eventually, she removed the position from her resume entirely and started applying for lower-level jobs, roles she once considered beneath her, but were now her only options. Meanwhile, under Lily's management and Charlotte's guidance, the bed and breakfast flourished, becoming more successful than it had been in years.